Did you know that every person watching this video, all 8 billion humans on Earth, are descended from just 2,000 survivors who nearly went extinct? This conclusion comes from genetic evidence gathered by leading universities worldwide, and it occurred more recently than most people realize. Welcome aboard Arnie's Brain Train. I'm Alex Arnold, and today we're examining humanity's population bottleneck and how it almost wiped us from existence. Our peer-reviewed research today comes from places like Columbia University, Oxford, Harvard, and our scientific evidence comes directly from studies published in journals like Science and Nature, along with research from the Genographic Project. Each claim is backed by geneticists, anthropologists, and evolutionary biologists, actual academic research that you can verify for yourself. Now, just some quick housekeeping before we start. Some viewers might find certain scientific terminology or evolutionary concepts offensive. That's unfortunate, but facts don't care about feelings. Additionally, this video contains AI-generated imagery, which apparently upsets some people. If computer-generated visuals disturb you more than our species almost going extinct, you might want to reconsider your priorities. And finally, all of my sources are listed in the description or in the pinned comment below. If you want to see more controversial topics using this rigorous approach, subscribe and help this channel grow. Now, let's try to understand how this population bottleneck might provide insight into what makes us uniquely human today. Here we go. Africa around 2.8 million years ago differed significantly from today's continent. Rather than vast deserts and scattered wildlife, this was a lush, tropical environment where our early ancestors lived in dense forests with abundant plant resources. However, the stability was temporary. According to research published in Science from Columbia University, around 2.8 million years ago, Earth's climate began experiencing significant instability. The planet was transitioning into the Pleistocene epoch, the Ice Age period. This wasn't gradual cooling, but rapid temperature fluctuations that created widespread environmental disruption. The African continent, stable for millions of years, became environmentally unstable. Volcanic activity increased as tectonic plates shifted. Large eruptions created ash clouds that blocked sunlight for extended periods, disrupting plant growth across regions. The monsoon patterns that had sustained the continent for millennia began failing, transforming forests into grasslands. Our early human ancestors were poorly adapted for this environmental shift. These Australopithecines had evolved for forest environments, their teeth designed for soft vegetation, their limbs built for tree climbing and canopy movement. Their survival strategy depended on resource abundance, which was rapidly disappearing. Consider the situation facing these early humans as their environment changed rapidly. Trees providing food and shelter were dying. Water sources were disappearing. The forest ecosystem was being replaced by open savannas where they were exposed to predators that their evolution hadn't prepared them to handle. According to fossil evidence analyzed by Dr. Leakey and her team at the Turkana Basin Institute, this period produced one of Africa's most significant species extinctions. Multiple lineages of early human relatives disappeared from the fossil record. For example, the Paranthropus species, with their large jaws designed for processing tough vegetation, couldn't survive when even hardy plants became scarce. Other human-like species that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years vanished within relatively brief geological timeframes. The ecosystem collapse extended beyond human relatives as well. Large herbivores that had occupied the landscape for millions of years began starving as grasslands replaced forests. This created secondary effects as well. As herbivores died, carnivores became more aggressive and began targeting previously safe prey, including our ancestors. Our early human ancestors faced multiple disadvantages. They were too small to compete with larger animals for remaining resources. They lacked the speed to escape large predators now roaming open plains, and they were too specialized for forest life to adapt quickly to these new conditions. According to genetic evidence published in Nature by Dr. Spencer Wells and the Genographic Project team, the human population during this crisis period decreased to as few as 2,000 individuals. The entire future of human civilization, every subsequent achievement, work of art, and scientific discovery depended on just 2,000 people. That's fewer people than attend most high school graduations. Scientists can now detect this ancient population reduction by examining our DNA today. Every human on Earth, from isolated tribal populations to urban populations worldwide, show genetic evidence of descending from this small group of survivors. Dr. Sarah Tishkoff from the University of Pennsylvania has conducted genetic studies showing that human genetic diversity is lower than most other species. We have less genetic variation than subspecies of chimpanzees, despite being distributed globally. This provides evidence of what geneticists call a population bottleneck, a period when our species was reduced to small numbers, permanently losing genetic diversity. This bottleneck affected more than just genetics. It shaped human psychology and behavior in ways that we continue to discover. When you're part of a small group fighting for survival, cooperation becomes essential for survival rather than merely beneficial. Consider why humans are unusually social compared to other primates, why we have more complex language abilities, and why we form communities for large collaborative projects. According to research by Dr. Robin Dunbar from Oxford University, these traits likely evolved during extreme survival pressures like the bottleneck period. Our ancestors survived this crisis through more than luck. They survived because the most cooperative, communicative, and innovative individuals were more likely to reproduce successfully. Over several thousand generations, a brief period in evolutionary terms, natural selection accelerated human intelligence and social capabilities. So where did our ancestors go to survive this period? Recent archaeological evidence suggests that they found refuge in coastal areas and highland valleys that were partially protected from climate disruptions. Dr. Curtis Moran from Arizona State University has discovered evidence of early human coastal settlements along the South African coast dating to this critical period. These coastal refuges provided what the disrupted inland areas couldn't: reliable food sources. While forests were dying and grasslands failing, oceans continued producing shellfish, seaweed, and fish that our ancestors could harvest. However, exploiting these marine resources required new technologies and thinking approaches. For the first time in human evolution, our ancestors became systematic tool makers. The simple implements that worked for forest foraging weren't sufficient for processing shellfish or marine foods. Archaeological sites from this period show increasingly sophisticated stone tool technologies, early evidence of human innovation under pressure. Dr. Sally McBrady from the University of Connecticut has documented how tool-making techniques became more advanced during this bottleneck period. Our ancestors developed systematic techniques for creating specific tool types for particular tasks. This represented a sort of beginning of human technology. Surviving in these small coastal groups required increased levels of cooperation and communication. When your entire community consists of 50 to 100 individuals, everyone must contribute, everyone's knowledge matters, and everyone must coordinate complex activities like group hunting or tool making. The extreme survival pressures of the bottleneck period didn't just preserve human life, they triggered what scientists call the cognitive revolution, the rapid evolution of human intelligence that would separate us from the other species on Earth. Dr. Richard Klein from Stanford University argues that the archaeological record shows accelerated human cognitive abilities starting around this bottleneck period. We see the first evidence of symbolic thinking. Early humans weren't just making tools, they were decorating them. They weren't just surviving, they were beginning to create art and express abstract concepts. Consider what this means. Under extreme survival pressure, when daily existence was a struggle, our ancestors found the mental capacity to create beauty. They were scratching patterns into rocks, collecting colorful shells, not for food but for decoration, and beginning to engage in abstract thinking that no other animal species has developed. But why would artistic behavior evolve during a survival crisis? According to research by Dr. Ellen Desanayake, artistic and symbolic behaviors serve social functions. They help groups bond, establish shared identities, and coordinate complex activities. When you're part of a small community fighting for survival, anything that strengthens group cohesion becomes valuable from an evolutionary perspective. The bottleneck period also explains human development patterns that anthropologists have studied, why human children take longer to mature compared to other primates. Dr. Barry Boggin from the University of Michigan suggests that our extended childhood evolved to allow for the complex learning required to master the sophisticated survival strategies that emerged during this crisis period. Every piece of knowledge became valuable when the human population was reduced to a few thousand individuals. The groups that developed the best methods for preserving and transmitting complex information from generation to generation were more likely to survive. This created evolutionary pressure for larger brains, longer childhoods, and more sophisticated teaching abilities, the foundation of human culture. The genetic evidence of the bottleneck event exists in every cell of your body today. Dr. Spencer Wells, in his book The Journey of Man, explains how geneticists can trace human population expansion after the bottleneck event by analyzing mutations in mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome markers. What they've discovered: all non-African human populations descend from a single group that left Africa sometime after the bottleneck recovery, probably around 70,000 years ago. The founding population that left Africa and populated the rest of the world consisted of approximately 1,000 to 2,000 individuals. The genetic diversity of all Europeans, Asians, Native Americans, and Pacific Islanders combined is smaller than the diversity found in single African tribes today. We are one of the least genetically diverse species on Earth. This has implications that most people don't even consider. When scientists discuss human races, they're referring to minor genetic variations that evolved over just the last 70,000 years. From a genetic perspective, the differences between a Norwegian and a Japanese person are smaller than the differences between two chimpanzees from neighboring troops in the same forest. The bottleneck event also left us with some negative consequences. Dr. Ajit Varki from UC San Diego has documented how our low genetic diversity makes humans more susceptible to certain diseases and genetic disorders. Many conditions that are rare in other species are common in humans because we lack the genetic diversity that would normally provide resistance. However, this genetic uniformity has also provided us with something useful: the ability to cooperate with genetically unrelated individuals on large scales. Most animal species can only form cooperative groups with close relatives because genetic similarity promotes altruistic behavior. Humans can form cooperative societies with complete strangers, possibly because our genetic bottleneck made all humans essentially close relatives in evolutionary terms. So how did our species recover from this near-extinction event? The answer reveals human adaptability that continues to shape our world today. According to research by Dr. John Hawks from the University of Wisconsin, the period following the bottleneck event saw the fastest rate of human evolution in our species history. The small surviving populations weren't just maintaining themselves, they were rapidly adapting to new environments and developing new survival strategies. One of the most important developments was the mastery of fire. While earlier human species may have occasionally used fire, systematic control and production of fire became widespread during the recovery period. Dr. Richard Wrangham from Harvard University argues that cooking food with controlled fire was crucial for human brain development because cooked food provides more readily available calories than raw food. This development had broad implications. During humanity's population minimum, our ancestors discovered the technology that would lead to civilization. Fire didn't just provide warmth and protection from predators. It extended daily activity by providing light for evening work. It enabled food preservation through smoking and cooking. It became the center of social gatherings where knowledge could be shared and cultural traditions developed. The recovery period saw the development of what anthropologists call behavioral modernity. The complete set of uniquely human behaviors, including sophisticated toolmaking, symbolic art, complex social organization, and what appears to be early forms of religious or spiritual thinking. Dr. Christopher Henshelwood's excavations at Blombos Cave in South Africa have uncovered evidence of sophisticated symbolic behavior dating to around 70,000 to 100,000 years ago, during the recovery period following the bottleneck event. Our ancestors were creating complex geometric patterns, making jewelry from shells, and engaging in activities that serve no obvious survival function, except to express abstract concepts and strengthen social bonds. So why should anyone care about these events that happened hundreds of thousands of years ago? Well, this story matters for several reasons. First, understanding the bottleneck event helps explain aspects of modern human behavior. Why are we tribal? Why do we form strong in-group, out-group distinctions? Why are we capable of both cooperation and warfare? The answers may lie in the social survival strategies that evolved during our species population minimum. Dr. Edward Wilson's research on group selection suggests that humans evolved what he calls eusociality, the ability to sacrifice individual interests for group survival. This trait, which is rare in the animal kingdom, likely evolved under the extreme pressures our ancestors faced during the bottleneck period. Groups that could coordinate effectively and suppress individual selfishness were more likely to survive. This same psychology that saved our species also creates modern problems. Our brains are wired for small group survival in dangerous environments, even though most of us now live in safe, abundant societies. This mismatch between our evolved psychology and modern conditions helps explain phenomena from political polarization to social media addiction. Second, the bottleneck story provides perspective on human resilience and adaptability. Our species has survived climate change before, not the gradual warming we're experiencing today, but rapid catastrophic environmental shifts that eliminated most other large African mammals. We survived because our ancestors adapted their way of life when circumstances required it. Dr. Brian Fagan's research on climate and human history shows that major environmental challenges have consistently triggered periods of rapid cultural and technological innovation throughout human history. The pattern suggests that humans have considerable capacity for adaptation when we embrace change rather than resist it. Just like every video, let's go ahead and summarize everything we've talked about. The bottleneck event explains why humans are simultaneously one of the most genetically uniform species on Earth and also the most behaviorally diverse. We're genetically similar, but the survival strategies that enabled us to survive the bottleneck created significant capacity for cultural innovation and adaptation. This ancient crisis also reveals why cooperation and innovation are fundamental to human nature. We didn't survive as individuals. We survived as communities that could share knowledge, coordinate complex activities, and maintain cultural traditions across generations. The groups that developed sophisticated forms of cooperation and communication were the ones that survived. The bottleneck event demonstrates that what we consider human nature was largely formed under extreme survival conditions. Our capacity for both altruism and violence, our drive to create art and meaning even in difficult circumstances, our ability to rapidly develop new technologies under pressure. These traits evolved from when survival was uncertain. Understanding this history doesn't just satisfy curiosity, it provides insight for navigating modern challenges. Climate change, resource depletion, technological disruption, these are survival challenges that our species has faced before. The question is whether we can access the same adaptive capacity that enabled our ancestors to survive their population minimum. The bottleneck event also reveals human potential. Under extreme pressure, our ancestors didn't just survive. They became more innovative, more cooperative, and more creative than they had previously been. Crisis didn't diminish human capacity. It revealed capabilities that had never been fully expressed under easier conditions. Well, that's it for today. We've examined one of the most significant survival stories in Earth's history. How just 2,000 early humans facing environmental catastrophe not only survived, but established the foundation for every human achievement that followed. From those 2,000 survivors clinging to life along ancient coastlines came every civilization, every work of art, every scientific discovery, and every act of human compassion in recorded history. We are here today because our ancestors maintained their efforts when extinction seemed probable. So the next time you observe the complexity of human civilization, the cities, the technologies, the diverse cultures and languages, consider that it traces back to that small group of survivors who chose cooperation over competition, innovation over resignation, and persistence over despair during humanity's population minimum. If you want to see me examine more topics like this one, or if you have ideas to improve these productions, hit that subscribe button and join the crew here at Arnie's Brain Train. Don't forget that all of my sources for today's content are listed in the description or in the pinned comment below. I encourage you to explore them yourself because independent investigation leads to the best understanding. Finally, keep that curiosity active, and I'll see you on the next exploration of history's most significant discoveries. All aboard the Brain Train, next stop, wherever your questions take us. This is Alex Arnold reminding you that the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. See you guys next time. Bye.